reviews, discussions, and theories about films in horror, sci-fi, and genre. This is the Horror Deconstruction. Like, share, and subscribe to hear more.
What's up, everybody? It's the Horror Deconstruction. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, most likely on YouTube. Give us a like, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell icon. Hit that thumbs up. Because we want you to listen to the show with your host, Komp and
Doorknobs.
As well as
Thea.
And I literally had a breakdown before this episode. And today's film is
Barbarian 2022.
Barbarian 2022. A woman staying at an Airbnb discovers that the house she has rented is not what it seems. Directed and written by Zach Krager, starring Georgina Campbell, Bill Skarsgård, and Justin Long, and a whole bunch of other people. So, why did we pick Barbarian 2022?
It's a new movie.
Yeah.
Ooh, we did a lot of new movies this year.
Is the Skarsgårds like in every movie ever made?
Yes.
There's three of them.
Contractually, they have to be.
He's gonna be in
there's the dad. There's the dad who's in Thor and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's a great fucking actor. Stellan Skarsgård.
And he was in the Dragon Tattoo movie, right?
And is it Alex Skarsgård? Who's the handsome one? Who's like Tarzan and all that shit? And he was in True Blood, and he was in he was
Bill
in that
Skarsgård is like strange looking, but in like a cool way.
He was in the Viking movie that we saw. Alexander Skarsgård, the one by the guy who did.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, he was the lead in that. And obviously, Bill Skarsgård was Pennywise in the recent It films. He's also going to be the Crow. So, they're remaking
Skarsgård.
They're remaking The Crow, so it's going to be interesting to see Bill Skarsgård because I love that The Crow movie. I don't know if either
Wouldn't
of you
it
guys
suck
seen
to
that
be
film?
related to these guys and you're like a terrible actor?
I know.
You might get a job anyway, could just by mistake.
Yeah.
Right? Putting the food in the production staff's room and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Barbarian is one of the most talked about horror films this year. There are three horror films that have been constantly talked about in this film.
Mm-hmm.
Smile, which tended to be the most profitable this year. I think it was 20.
Terrifier 2.
No, yeah, I know, but with Smile, eventually we'll do that too. I think we have to. Like, Smile wasn't a movie I was looking to do because it kind of looked generic, but people said, oh, it's alright, it's better than normal, which means it's probably just okay.
Right.
But I think it was like 27 million or 17 million, and so far it's made $200 million. So that's like the biggest hit of this year. And obviously Terrifier 2, which
they should make a sequel, and it's called Frown.
They had a good marketing campaign with Smile. We'll do Smile when we do Smile.
I saw that.
Yeah, we'll talk about that when we do Smile. But Terrifier 2, obviously, a movie that was made for about $375,000 or $275,000 has crossed $10 million. So that's great.
Woo.
Good for them with Terrifier 2. And then there's this film. There's this film Barbarian, which seemingly came out of nowhere, and like really people were just talking about it. So is it all hype? We'll see. It's directed by Zach Krager, who was part of one of the he was one of the comedian troupe, 1/4 or 1/3. I don't know how many people were in it, but The Whitest Kids You Know was a comedy troupe. They had like a little bit. I don't know what channel they were. I don't know if it was Comedy Central. I'm sure you have. Like, there was one guy who was recognizable at the group, but he fucking like died recently because he fell off the ledge of his house. Apparently, like
Grim.
they were trying to figure out why he fell off his ledge. Like, either he was drunk and fell over his ledge, or something else. It's just sort of they don't know. But he's somebody that like people who like loved comedy really loved that guy. But Zach Krager was part of that group, and apparently he's got a talent. I don't know if he directed the show or what he did. I know he was part of the troupe, but apparently he's got good directing chops. Because I assume this is the same sort of thing when Jordan Peele This is sort of the same thing when Jordan Peele, and everybody was sort of like, oh, he's a comedic actor. And then when he came out with, Get Out, you're like, oh, what the fuck? This guy actually knows how to direct. And then, like, and it's funny because if you watch any of, I never really watched Key and Peele the show, although when I would see it,
there's
like,
a couple of good episodes. But
yeah,
probably like 6 or 7.
There's a great skit like about racist zombies. It's like one of the funniest things I've seen, where like Key and Peele are like walking around like this area, and it's zombies, and they're like, oh my god, and they're scared, but like they'll go up to the zombies and the zombies start running away from them, and there's like a part where they go up to a car full of zombies and the zombies lock the door. It's one of the funniest fucking
I really
see.
like the they're doing like aerobics. It's like supposed to be like an 80s cheesy
yeah, and it starts out looking like they're like having sex with somebody, like a threesome, but they're actually just doing aerobics. But
He gets all this bad news about his wife dying or whatever.
But so like when Jordan Peele came out and he did his thing, so Zach Cregger I think is sort of like that, but I guess for white people, I'm not sure. He's not making any pro-white movies.
Same day.
But this came out of nowhere. It was a movie. It's best not knowing what it is because much like what was a movie that we saw that wasn't? I don't know if there's a movie that kind of equal to this right now that we saw we didn't know what it was going to be about. This is a movie best not to know what it's about before you see it, because it literally turns into like two other movies while you're watching it. And Thea, why don't you start out and explain to us what happens in Barbarian?
Yeah, we pick up with Tess Marshall, she's arriving to like a dark house late at night, and we find out that it's an Airbnb, but the key is not in the box where it's supposed to be. And when she knocks, somebody eventually answers, and somebody is already booked into the place that she's supposed to be staying in. So then he invites her in.
Yeah, I was convinced that he was the owner of the house and did that on purpose.
They did it. It was a good casting decision to pick him because he's the kind of person where you're like, oh, it could go either way. Like it feels like he could be involved somehow and is going to do something horrible.
Plus, he plays Pennywise.
I thought he created like this fake ploy of like pretending that he was an Airbnb person at his own house so he could like kill her or whatever.
Yeah, and they do a good job
sure
of playing that fear in her.
I'm sure Bill Skarsgård took the job specifically because it was an against type job where like you expected him, because he's so like famous now for playing Pennywise, that he would be a creep in another movie. And I didn't know anything about this movie. Like I just from the trailer alone, or the poster of the woman standing, at the staircase into nothing, you're like, oh, so it's somebody who's gonna get locked up. And I mean, it is what that is. You know what I mean? This is what that movie
it's a version of that
implies. It's just who the enemy is that you don't know, and what the the ramifications of what it is, and if it's like,
and the backstory and how long it's been.
I feel like it's pretty unique though.
Yeah.
And when I heard Justin Long was in it, I knew it would be decent at least.
Yeah.
Because he's
Justin Long's in some great movies, some of them directed by disgusting pedophiles, but
Dodgeball is like one of the best movies ever.
Dodgeball was directed by a pedophile? No, it was obviously
Jeepers Creepers.
Jeepers Creepers. By the way, I
Creepers, where'd you get
I saw parts of I heard the new Jeepers Creepers Reborn, so like I saw parts of it. You can't even imagine how bad it is.
How is he still making movies?
No, it's not him. He had nothing to do with this. That's the ironic thing, because maybe he would have made it at least I heard part 3 was garbage.
I mean, he's good at directing movies. He's just bad at having sex with kids. Like
he's better at directing his penis.
Oh no!
Anyway,
no.
So he did the first 3, but then the 4th one was directed by somebody else. But it was a movie that was heavily fucked up by the plague.
Right.
So there's like, it's all green screen. You can tell people aren't in play. Their feet are like warping through grass.
People are on other sides of the room.
Okay.
Yeah. And I saw one part how they kill the creep in the movie, and they pick up a weather vane and they throw it, but they didn't have, I guess, the budget to use a real weather vane, so the weather vane's like warping like a Nintendo 64 graphics, like in the air while they're throwing. It's really poorly done. But anyway, back to Justin Long. So Justin Long has been in a lot of movies. I remember I was at an old job of mine, and one of our bosses is like a West Indian dude, so he has like a heavy accent. And he was talking to Justin Long, asking him if he wanted another drink or something like that. And it was just funny because Justin Long was like, excuse me, what? Because he's just like how his character is in the movie. And I just couldn't stop laughing. It was just very funny. But yeah, Justin Long is like, he's in a movie called The Wave that I want to look, which is about a guy who's like taking a drug trip. So the whole movie looks like a drug trip and it's all crazy. And obviously he was in Tusk, right? And he's been fucked over in a lot of movies, but he's entertaining and he's a very good actor.
He seems to have very bad luck in these movies.
Mm-hmm.
And he plays.
Although in this one he kind of deserves it. So
he plays a very incredibly complicated character in this film that we'll get into. But the movie does not start out with Justin Long's character. In fact, it starts out with the actress Georgina Campbell, who this movie is full of people who make very stupid decisions. If they got good hearts, they make dumb decisions. But Thea, why don't we get into who Tess is? What is Tess? When you gave out the opening where she kind of shows up in this house, but what happens to Tess when she shows up at this apartment and a new owner comes in?
When a new owner comes in,
or I mean, whoever the owner is at the apartment, or temporary owner.
So eventually we didn't really talk about it, but Tess gets, taken into the basement after she's been chased down by this really tall woman.
God, I would have just let the guy die.
Well, Thea front flipped over the whole beginning of meeting Keith.
Thea, would you? If
the beginning of meeting who?
Tess,
the guy? I already talked about that.
Sorry.
Keith is okay. So Keith is already there, and he invites her in, and there's a long sort of drawn out, played out thing where she sort of doesn't know what to do, and they're talking about, well, you could go find a hotel, but everything's booked up because there's a conference in town. So you're probably better off here. There's nothing else in the neighborhood. You're not going to get another place. So why don't you stay? We'll both stay here. I'll take the couch, and she takes the bed. But she's locking the door when she goes to the bathroom, being very safe and careful and a little bit guarded against him. He asks her if she wants to have some wine. And it's not until he reveals that he has a interest in the work that she's doing and is actually
he's tangentially involved.
So she's in town for an interview.
I thought that he must have researched that on his own after finding out she booked
it. Did seem very convenient, which is but that adds to it too, right? It's it
adds to it.
Yeah,
it was a big red herring.
She's trying to work for a documentary director, right? And he's he's actually part of some sort of music scene in New Orleans or something like that. Detroit, I'm not sure. I guess it would be Detroit, obviously. And so, but he's all this is a movie that it's weird because it goes from two angles of the same thing. The director had explained it before. Zach Cregger had explained it's a movie if I was a woman in this situation, how can I make this scary? But if you just go a traditional path, it kind of gets boring. And then to flip it and go on the other side of the guy who would be the quote unquote predator, and see how that goes. And it's a really interesting it's a very topical film without being so blatant with it because it feels natural. Yeah. Besides the obviously unnatural choices that these characters make to stay in said situation.
I would have fucking been in that car driving away. I wouldn't.
There's a lot of things because Keith, she makes a dumb decision of going down that fucking stairway in the first place.
Insane. I was
just
screaming.
Very stupid. I would have been bye.
I was no.
She tries to pack up and he tries to convince her. Keith goes, wait, there's a room down there that looks sketchy. I'm going to go check it out. But you think, as an audience, you're oh, he's just
he's luring her or something, yeah.
And there's the...
I mean, there are people who are stupid enough to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but why? Danny's favorite character is
because people are... He wants to show off, oh, I'm a tough guy. I'll solve this problem.
Danny's favorite character is the cops.
Oh God! Well, and on her
really
behalf,
almost threw my computer at that scene.
I know. She's she cares about people enough to check and make sure that he's okay, which I get. But over and over again, I'm just you have no self-preservation whatsoever.
She really doesn't.
And also, this guy's such an asshole. So fucking.
Well, also that, but she doesn't know that.
Well, because it's weird because you do find out that Keith was a nice guy. He's just stupid, just like her. She's dumb too.
Yeah.
And it's just it's funny how to see a movie where the self-preservation is obvious in one and not in the other.
I feel if characters had self-preservation, horror movies wouldn't exist.
Yeah, of course. I've only seen one or two movies where the characters are I'm getting the fuck out of here. I think it was in Paranormal Activity. There was a priest, right?
Oh, the priest.
He wouldn't even go into the house. He said, I'm out of here. And the other one was The Taking of Deborah Logan. Mm-hmm. There was a character there who was helping them do the documentary, and he got in his car and he got the fuck out. You never saw him in the movie.
He was Terrifier 2. It's not they make bad decisions. They're just being chased by
that's a supernatural, unstoppable thing. But rarely do you see people who try to stay away from situations like this. And in this, Tess obviously ends up getting fucked over. She gets taken in by this creature who is actually played by a guy, Matthew Patrick Davis.
And he's fucking tall. He's
so
6'8".
tall.
I thought it was an actual woman because I thought the breasts were real and they just hired a young actress and put a fake face on her or something. And I was
you know what it reminded me of the creature person at the end of Wreck that you see.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, this is it's the most generic sort of monster design for a film. But it fits well for this. I don't know the explanation of the creature makes any sense later on in the movie, but I guess it does. I'm not sure. depending on who the character is. But the movie goes into that timeline, and then we meet Justin Long's character, who's at least one of the most complicated characters I've seen in a movie. Eventually, his like self-preservation shows the ugliness of his character, and obviously other decisions that he makes and language that he uses. But I'm not gonna be like a language police, because people always say fucked up shit to each other anyway. But like, I'm sure anybody who's watching this movie, I'm sure like
at the very least,
a person who's like homosexual is gonna watch this, and like one slur that he uses is gonna be like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? They're gonna be like, how dare he say that?
No,
but,
I mean I think that's his character.
People talk like
that's
that.
His character.
Yeah.
That's like it's
no,
not...
yeah. I'm not saying Justin Long. I'm saying his character, AJ. So
but,
AJ,
I feel like this movie, the explanation for how she got made from, fucking the daughters of the daughters of the daughters, but like that works in Craster's Keep in Game of Thrones. I was thinking about this. In Craster's Keep in Game of Thrones, we get Gilly, or whatever her name is. Gilly? Is it Gilly or Gilly? I forget.
Which one's Gilly? Oh, Gilly's the girl who gets pregnant?
That's like Sam's girlfriend. She's like very nice, and how come she didn't turn into a monster?
Not enough generations.
She wasn't kept down in a fucking cave.
But it was like the great-granddaughter.
I don't know.
This guy had been doing that forever.
There's dragons in that story. I don't think they're gonna fucking... It's not the same world. But,
Fine.
Danny,
well, the only way to try is to try it and find out. And I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah, right.
Alex, will you do that and just find out?
Thea, explain who AJ is. What he's up to.
AJ he's just been fired from a television series because his co-star made
don't use the word
rape allegations?
Well, I guess you used the word anyway.
What?
Rap allegations against him.
Why does it matter? Oh,
YouTube will like obliterate the show.
Okay, we're gonna go back. AJ gets allegations made against him, and he loses his TV show.
Yeah, and he sees it one way.
What does AJ stand for?
Ass jammer. He
well, that's why he got this allegation.
That's what I was saying. But he got into trouble, like Thea says, because he looked at one situation another way that somebody else didn't, and this is the nuance of this movie, because that this is a very tricky thing to go into as a guy talking about it, as opposed to like a woman talking about it, because there's a whole.
Well, the interesting thing is we actually get his perspective, like his real perspective.
Yeah.
Usually you don't know. It's just one person's word. Yeah. But we get to see his inside thoughts, and he genuinely doesn't think he did it wrong, but then he does apologize.
Yeah.
And his explanations
so like
are, and the thing is, his explanations.
I still think he's a scumbag, though.
Yeah, I think his explanations are very strange and don't help his argument.
No.
But he's like it's the weird thing. What the most fascinating thing about the character ends up being sort of a self-serving scumbag. Although who knows in the situation who you wouldn't throw out of the way to not get killed, but like this basic decency. So that's why I think it's an interesting like character. He's not like did you ever see this was it the Scarlett Johansson movie, this Under the Skin? Did you ever see that, Thea?
I haven't, no, but we've talked about it.
Okay, well, did we tell you what the ending was in that movie? I don't know if it's a spoiler. Remember. But anyway, I won't spoil it. But there's a character who's like a sexual assaulter guy, and he's like ends up being like a hero in the movie.
Oh God!
Like it's not like, hey, he's a good guy. It's just that what he does helps stop a certain bad thing, and he's like that's just like a cartoonish character here.
Oh yeah, you're right. You're right.
And here, like Justin Long's character, you're not sure, but I think what happens is his character traits will make you go, well, fuck him anyway. I believe the girl, that kind of thing. Yeah. And it's so strange because like you got to hear the conversation between other people about him. Like towards a woman, a woman cannot feel safe if she's like at work and the big boss is like, oh, come on, let's do it. And you're like, no. But then he like breaks you down, like, because then you become afraid. Like, I don't want to speak for women. Like, I feel stupid saying this while Thea's here when she can kind of explain this better than I am. You could just tell me if I'm right or wrong. Or if you're like at a job and the guy's like, oh, come on, let's hook up. And you're like, no. And then later on, he just keeps doing it. And then you start having a fear of like, oh shit, is this guy does he hold my future in his hands in this business sort of thing? So I don't know if like I'm mansplaining that. Excuse me.
No, that's
but
completely
but I
correct.
think that's the general thing that because I've heard you say that before, so I basically end up breaking down what you're saying.
Well, I guess that's the whole like Weinstein thing. Too.
Yeah.
Basically.
That fucking
So
Harvey
where it's like
Weinstein
I won't get any further in this industry or in this career or whatever, or I won't be able to keep my job if I don't.
And it's funny
do
because
this thing.
the further blurring of that line's obviously in American, thought is the whole Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing. Because in the UK, Johnny Depp lost that thing. He lost that whole thing against him being called an assaulter of women and shit like that. He lost in the. But the thing is, the trades and all the paper over there, they're really
crazy,
full of shit
man.
in the UK. Like they really are really like shitty with their. You think TMZ is bad here? Over there, it's even worse. Like they tap people's fucking phones over there just to
Yeah.
listen to shit.
Oh my
But
God.
and over here in the US, when Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. When you started hearing all that shit, then you realize both these motherfuckers are like toxic, like they're really bad.
Yeah,
you know
it's
what I
just
mean?
it's a toxic relationship that like was horrible.
So
but-
and it's weird. So like I'm sure in the UK, Johnny Depp seems like an asshole, and over here he just seems like a dumbass. But Amber Heard was the one who got like even worse. So this movie like plays with that in a sense that you're like, do I really know who this guy is? Because there are moments like I was like, please don't let. I was like, I hope this guy's not a real piece of shit. Like I was hoping that. Like
I mean, he is.
He is.
Yeah.
I'm just saying in the process of it because everything he did just sounded worse and worse. Like the part when he goes to his friend and he was like, "Oh, it just took some convincing, And I was like,
yeah,
Like,
I you know how I am. I'm persistent. I don't take no for an answer.
Yeah, and the
basically.
thing is,
And it
I'm
was
sure
like,
we've all met or
ooh.
known somebody like that in real life. And
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just like,
They're all over.
Yeah. Oh God. One time I stayed at an Airbnb, and there was this. I was being hosted by this girl, and she had a guy over, and he was being so persistent to the point where I was like about to stand up and be like,
Yeah,
"Yo,
like she said,
leave
no,
her
dude."
alone."
Yeah.
Like it was just so upsetting.
It's crazy. Yeah,
But
it's
instead
crazy
then
how
just sit there and
commonplace it is.
Yeah, because I remember I was in a situation once when I was up to my rapscallion. That is not me doing something bad. I'm just making that sure. I got into a situation where I was incarcerated for a couple hours, right? And I wasn't doing it bad. It was graffiti. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
But I was with a whole bunch of these street toughs in this room, and there was like this one kid who was really funny. He was a really nice guy. And we're all laughing at his jokes later on.
Oh, you told me this
told
story.
you
Oh my
this.
God.
We're all laughing, and we're like, this guy's funny. He's like the comedian of the group. And later on, I'm like, this is before I'm like getting called up, like hearing him was, yeah, man, this girl said I rapped her, and I was like, what? And in my head, I was like, like, what the? Yeah, but she said she wanted it. She's just lying, I was like,
Oh my
fucking
God,
dog shit.
it's crazy.
Like I literally just sat with this guy, was joking around, and I didn't know what he was there for.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go into fucking this area and go, hey, what are you in here for? And I was just like, ooh, like it's really very vague, and you don't know, and nebulous on what things are, and that's what this. And I appreciate that this character is the forefront in this movie because there's parts like the part when he actually sees the video of what this guy has done, and he's literally he's disturbed by it.
Yeah.
Something like, so it makes you go like, this guy, like, he is not. And then there's another part where, when he shot the girl and he's trying to get her helped, and it seems like he's making an admission. He goes, I hurt somebody and I want to save them.
And I have to do right, basically. And he's talking about both situations.
And
it seems, they set him up
then
for.
he goes right back on that.
They
shit.
set him up for a redemption arc, which you think that is going, like, he's going to help her. And
and I think
immediately he gets
the
exposed
problem
for what he
is
actually is.
Yeah, I know, and then that makes him a scumbag. The problem with that, because like if he had just kept running up, and if he hadn't thrown her off the top, then he could still be sort of dubious. The problem with, I think what happens is, I think Zach Craig, this might mean just making a guess.
He did a fucking George Costanza in the fire scene.
I think what happens is Zach Crager probably knew if he had actually redeemed this character, he probably would have gotten a lot of shit just from people on Twitter. Like if he actually
but that's also predictable. Like it's also like you want to do the thing that's not so obvious, right? Because in most movies, yes, he would have been the hero. He would have tackled the woman off of the tower and she would have escaped or whatever.
Because like when I and then he would probably have been looked at like, oh, why are you trying to redeem a rapist character, like a sexual assault? Because that happened with this movie called Three Billboards in Ebbing, Missouri, or whatever it's called, Three Billboards. It's a movie called Three Billboards. Very good movie about a woman whose daughter is killed, and so she keeps putting up these billboards saying, "Why hasn't the cops done something?" It's a very good movie with Frances McDormand in it. And there's a character played by who's the actor?
Sam Rockwell.
Sam Rockwell, who's like a racist guy, and he eventually becomes he gets his ass beaten. He gets fired because he's a racist dickhead. But later on, he tries to help, in solving the crime, which sort of redemption. And all on Twitter, because listen, people, Twitter is not a real place. Obviously, you can see now Twitter is not a real place because it's going on the Twitter.
It really isn't now.
That's what's funny now. Like, that's really funny. But in that movie, and then everybody on Twitter was like, "Oh, why are you making this racist a hero?" And I'm just like, it's complicated. It's not a real person. That's not a real guy, okay? People don't, when you're on Twitter, they think if you watch a certain movie, then that's how your mindset is. Like, that's why people, when, let's say, like, a racist will be like, why do you have a dumb white character that you're destroying the white race? Or if like a black guy would be like, oh, why are you having this black character be like cartoonish? That means you think, oh, no, it's not. It's a fucking movie. But there are people, subsets, that believe this dog shit. They're like, oh, this movie is the way because millions of people will see this and it'll affect the world. Get the fuck out of here. It's a movie. So I appreciated that AJ as a character is so complicated in his stupid actions. Like, when he goes into this house, it shows you the difference also between a man and a woman. A woman, like, there's that old phrase that I had known a long time, is like, a woman has to, they don't have to, but it's smarter to be aware of that men, you're in a society where a guy can either be nice to you or fucking kill you. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
And, like, guys are usually just sort of built differently because we're sort of taught to be masculine, do take care of shit. So his reaction to going in the house and finding this room, like, first he's scared. He's like, oh, I got a gun, I'll go and shoot you. Yeah. He ends up getting a tape measure and trying to see if he could get more money.
The square footage measuring is so funny. I was
funny.
Cackling. That was great.
Because when I had first initially seen this movie, I was like, all right, it was pretty interesting. It was cool. It was like sort of the same thing I've seen before, but at least I didn't know anything about it while watching, which is the best way to watch most of these horror movies. But like, the best way to watch any movie, more I think and talk about it, I'm like very impressed at how it's put together just as a character base. I mean, the characters make very stupid decisions, and you need that for a horror film. But I think in the end it works out, especially like how it comes together. The only thing that was sort of stupid is that they always got to do this. They always have to have like the Andre, the homeless man, James Butler. He's like, when she's trying to get into, and it's a very effective scene when she's coming to the house. Little girl, come here. Like, wouldn't you be like, hey, lady, listen to me. Listen, lady.
Yeah, you're not safe.
Lady,
you gotta get out of here.
Yeah, and he was like chasing
her. Come here, woman. Come here. Hey, come here, little girl. Who the fuck's
but she also doesn't know, like, even if he had been like completely just like, hey, sorry, like, don't go in there. There's something going wrong.
Right, if you see a guy in rags.
I would stand in place far away and flag her down from my place far away.
And just be like, hey, like, can I come up to you? Is that okay? But, like, he's scared, too. That's why he's reacting so crazy,
and the fact that he didn't do... obviously, if you see the cops in the movie, the reason why he didn't do anything is because the cops are so,
oh, God, they're the worst.
Detroit has some problems, let's just say.
That was, like, too real. Almost.
And I think that was
No, I understand, but those cops are just the worst.
And it was so interesting how they did a sort of Midsummer thing where the night wasn't the scariest part of the movie. If you do see the director's cut of Midsummer, there is a dark, scary scene in that movie, one shot, which is great. But in this, like, the house is just in darkness, so she just goes into the house, and that's kind of creepy. But when they showed it in light and every other house is just beyond repair, you're like, holy fucking shit. Like, you don't realize that the trouble that you were in until you see it in the daytime. What any other standout things for you, Thea, with this movie? I feel like I spoke a lot, and I think this is probably the best for you to talk about this type of film and what it kind of entails.
No, you spoke well about all the things that I think I would have picked out. Like, I think those moments, I mean, with the quick reversal of Justin Long's character is the best part for me. Like, that was the most... It felt like, oh, okay, I understand why we did everything we did up until now. Like, it feels locked in. It feels like, oh, okay, got it. That's my favorite thing about any good horror movie is, like, it exposes the true nature of the people that are at the center of the fear.
The self-preservation. It's
Yeah,
it's really interesting.
we good or bad, right? And
Yeah, right,
and like
yeah.
so we get to see
He's
like
such a piece of
immediately.
shit.
Oh, okay, that's what you do when you're cornered.
Yeah, because I
You
think in
don't
that
you don't help somebody else.
I don't know what I would do.
I don't know
but
either.
I would hope
I
wouldn't
mean,
do
I would
that.
hope I would, because when I saw him, like, when the creature started attacking the guy
Yeah.
and he just ran, I was like, oh well, that's who he is. Like
Yeah.
at that moment, I was like, oh, that's who he is. Like,
Yeah.
and I was like, ah, shit. Well, like I was hoping he wasn't a very bad person according to the
Yeah.
story that happened, but like.
The
He's
way
still
that he
confident.
runs
If I saw
away.
somebody ripping off.
I know,
somebody
yeah, I
else's
know,
arm,
I
might
know,
run
because
too.
Yeah.
we're from the safety of our own
But
houses.
what I
watching
could
this.
say, what I feel very confident in, even if I didn't save Tessa's character, I wouldn't
Yeah, right,
actively
yeah.
throw her off.
To
a
save
building.
No,
yourself,
you would just
right.
be like,
run.
well, we're fucked. I guess.
I would just run in a panic, probably,
Yeah.
and then like not realize.
I remember-
it.
I would probably
Like,
run with her. I probably wouldn't have run ahead like 20 paces.
Yeah, I might try to like lift her or something,
Yeah.
but like I definitely wouldn't throw her off a roof.
Yeah.
I remember I was at a McDonald's with my nieces and my brother-in-law and my sister, and I saw smoke billowing out from the front. I don't know. I think this might have been a year after probably after 9/11 or something. So a couple years after that. So I saw smoke billowing from the ground in front of the building, like out of the windows. And you should have seen how fast I picked up one of my nieces and ran out the building. Like it was like
You shove her aside and just run like move.
it was almost like Andy picking up Chucky in Child's Play, just
Oh
like
my
picking up a
God.
rag dog. And I was like, let's get out of here.
Yeah.
And, it was like, and I felt foolish because it was nothing. But I was like, okay, I'm glad I had that instinct.
That's a
in
good
me.
instinct,
I
though.
hope that, like, I hope
See?
I kept that with me. But I definitely would have at least tried because first of all, I feel bad that that I shot her, and he does too in the movie.
Yeah.
And he tries, but he just like at that moment, I think he panicked so bad. And I'm not trying to explain for him or set aside what he did, but I like that the movie gives you that. It's not clean. I mean, it's clean to the fact that now we can hate him as an audience because he did this to Tess, who we've seen being somebody who's been selfless throughout the whole movie. Like, you know what I mean? So that shows you
Stupidly selfless.
the big dynamic before these two. And if Keith had survived, I'm sure he would have done the same.
Yeah.
Been a good guy too, but you need to get rid of him to like put the danger in the film. Although you thought Keith was the danger of the movie, so I like that.
I felt bad for the mom.
Yeah,
too.
the more and more I think about it, yes, I
Yeah.
do feel bad because obviously her father, who's played by the original Night King, Richard Brake, from he was
really?
the original.
Hey, that's funny. I mentioned Game of Thrones before.
He was the original. He plays Frank in this movie, who in the '80s would do very terrible things to women. It was very. Oh God, was that creepy? When he unlocked the bathroom window, I was like, oh no! Like I was just like, oh shit.
That was
And-
really good, like backstory storytelling without
Yeah.
being,
And
like,
it's
gratuitous.
it's just so really because it comes out of nowhere, and I was like, wow, this is such an interesting shot, and it's all like done in one take from some parts and stuff like that. And obviously, like Richard Brake is a great fucking actor. Like he was in his Rob Zombie movie called 31, which is the worst movie I saw that year. I remember it was.
I never.
I remember I saw Lords of Salem, and I was like, this is my favorite movie of this year. And then I saw that, and I was like, oh, Rob Zombie has lost his mind. Or
I heard that
he's great in
the
it, though.
Monsters. I heard that the Monsters was terrible, but I heard that the set design.
Oh
and
yeah, no, I heard it
everything was
looks.
amazing.
It
I heard it
looks
looks
incredible.
beautiful. It's on
Yeah.
Netflix, but
But I heard that the jokes in the script is.
Oh,
he wrote it
everything is gonna be
himself.
bad.
Like
Yeah.
I wouldn't trust Rob Zombie to write jokes. Like if I was Rob Zombie, like wouldn't you? I don't know. I think they said it was $40 million, but I don't think that's the budget. He should have hired the motherfuckers that wrote the Addams Family movie. You know what I mean? Listen, just write this movie.
Speaking
for me.
of which, the Wednesday show is coming soon.
The only reason why I'm not the reason why I like Wednesday the movie. The thing is like Jenna Ortega because I didn't know she was Puerto Rican, so good for her.
Yeah.
But it looks like Sabrina the Teenage Witch, or not the Teenage Witch show, the Sabrina show, like
Yeah.
a CW show, and I'm like, I don't give a fuck about
Nah,
that.
it's gonna be good. It's gonna be shut the fuck
Well,
up.
Tim
It's gonna
Burton
be
has
good.
only been making good movies, right? So it has to be good, right?
It's
Danny?
is it Tim
Exactly.
Burton?
Shut up.
Yeah, it is.
The new one?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Like they're.
All
He's
right.
hit or
I
miss.
mean, I'll watch
but
a
it's
Tim
gonna be
Burton
good.
thing. Like if I was
He's
like
been
had no
mostly
other
missing
choice.
the last however
Yeah,
many
yeah.
years, but we'll see.
I mean, this is like the role he was born for. So, come on, it'll be good. Leave
We'll
me
see.
alone. Shut up.
If it was just the family, but now they just sort of focus on Wednesday. I guess because the show's called fucking Wednesday. But good for
Yeah.
Jenna Ortega. Anyway, so yeah, this is I appreciated it. I feel like I've spoken 95% of this episode. I apologize.
No.
It's but
You were
Was there any-
defending a rapist.
was-
I mean, that's
your
forte.
role.
Was there anything that didn't work for you guys with this movie? Like that just was like, they could have got rid of this or trimmed that.
I feel like the mother creature is a little
Boring.
bland,
Yeah.
generic.
Yeah, I think that was like, I feel like because we watch so many horror movies, that was like, oh, okay, I get what this is pretty quickly.
And also, it doesn't make any sense that, because like he's like, the guy is assaulting, I guess, a copy of he must have gotten one of his victims pregnant.
Yeah.
And that's what, 80s to now. So I guess that's like 40 years or something like that from then.
Yeah.
So I guess you could, but I mean, like, I don't want.
The math isn't math.
Yeah, what the math that I'm
like,
saying is going to sound very disturbing and trying to.
But it's like chill. Yeah, he's
yeah,
like
because like
children.
if you have to wait for somebody to
I did it
reach a certain
again.
age for puberty.
Yeah, but
you know
also
what I mean?
think about it. This guy's like a terrible monster.
No, I
person,
get that. I
so-
get that. I'm just saying the math of the mother to a mother to the mother. Like realistically, would probably be what four sort of.
4 generations.
I don't even want to
yeah.
think. Like the thing I'm trying to explain is just
Every 10
disturbing.
years.
Right.
Every 10 years.
So and the woman looked like she looked genetically like I don't know how many people you would have to sleep with to have somebody look like that. This is somebody
Yeah.
that would have to be like hundreds of years, not fucking like.
well, it's
30
obviously
years.
not realistic.
Right.
so.
But you know, obviously it's for a movie, but that just didn't make any.
We
fucking
need
sense.
Gilly. They should have gotten Gilly from Game of Thrones to play her.
But it's funny if you go on YouTube, like Gilly was like in I think a couple of UK shows where she's playing like a sex pot, and you're like, that's not my Gilly. My Gilly is a nice girl.
But she is sexy though. Oh my god.
Great way to sexualize a person at the end of
Oh,
this movie, which is
God.
explaining that stuff. So I guess everything pretty much worked for you guys except for those issues.
What
Yeah.
I do?
I mean, I wish Tess could have been like had a few smarter choices.
Yeah. She did it at the beginning, but she's easy
Yeah.
to convince. She's easy to convince. She's very gullible. Because Keith was
Yeah.
like, "Why don't you wait here? Why don't you come down and check?" I was like, "No, I'm out of here. Are you fucking
I was like,
nuts?"
even if you like him, maybe just go.
Because Keith,
I would drive into a populated part of the city, park in the parking lot of a hotel, and
leave.
sleep in the car.
Yeah.
Keith
exactly.
what Keith should have done when he first heard her say that, he said, all right, you know what? Let's just lock this door. You know what I mean? Just and wait till I call a couple of my friends to come down here because his decision
Yeah.
was very foolish as well. So I don't.
Oh
get
yeah,
that.
no, he makes the stupidest decision of all. Probably.
I would have left
but-
him to die.
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%,
that one
100%.
scene though.
Absolutely. I would not have gone down
No.
those
That
stairs,
one
no
scene
way.
where she was in the bed and like the door's open, it's ajar, and you see him like having night terrors. That was fucking great. I fucking love
Yeah.
that because then she comes out and then you see that door close behind her. You see the
Yeah,
basement door. I
down
was
the
like,
hallway.
this is fucking great. So I mean, Zach Kreger fucking like really did a great job with this movie.
Mm-hmm.
As sort of plain as it is put together, it still is a great conversation piece because it gives you something to think about. As
Yeah.
sort of generic as the horror is itself, I think it's done really well because it's making you think while you watch it.
Yeah.
So I mean, like I liked it. The more and more I'm talking about it, I'm like, oh yeah, this is a pretty fucking good movie. Like it's really fucking good.
Yeah, it was good.
So Danny, what rating would you give Barbarian 2022?
I give it an 8 out of 10. You're very confident that you're safe, and you've been here for 15 years, and suddenly, on cue, your arm is ripped off and you're beaten to death with it.
Could you imagine? She never attacked this place. Whoops! Right off, arm right off.
The second he started saying,
Oh
I was
yeah,
like, any
obviously,
moment
it's
now,
very
here we go.
obviously.
Classic.
I would give this movie an 8 out of 10. Calling out your bros by a very salacious name and just having a night of your life before it will become the worst nights of your life. Thea, what rating would you give Barbarian in 2022?
I would give it an 8 out of 10. Your immediate thought when you find like an obvious murder room in the basement is to start measuring the square footage so that you know how much you can sell your house for.
That was very funny. So with that, Thea, what's the final word?
Trailer.
Danny, what's the final word?
Rub-a-dub-dub.